Now, there's been a lot of talk about protests in the UK recently, with especially environmental protesters upping their tactics to get attention and work towards their objectives. One group who've entered the fray more recently are Insulate Britain, a group linked to Extinction Rebellion, who gained media attention by blocking roads in England, most notably the M25 motorway which surrounds London, and the M1 which connects the north to the south. And many people aren't keen on these tactics. In fact, we've got an ongoing poll on our Twitter account which suggests that most of our viewers support their cause, but not their actions. By the way, you too can vote and follow us on Twitter by clicking the link below. Anyway, in this video, we're going to unpack what Insulate Britain stands for, and if the problems are really as bad as they claim. A House of Commons report from 2019 found that Britain's houses are not only the oldest in Europe, but also the most inefficient, with about 19% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions coming from energy used to run houses, businesses, and workplaces. In fact, about 14.6% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the UK come specifically from running houses. So if Britain is going to meet its climate change goals, then something needs to be done about the efficiency of British homes. So is Insulate Britain onto something? Well, let's start by looking at the situation as it stands currently. 2.5 million families in the UK live in poor housing conditions, and many suffer from fuel poverty, when people cannot afford to heat their own homes, something that would be improved by better insulation, and the level of efficiency in houses can actually be measured. The Energy Performance Certificate, or EPC, places houses in categories from A to G grades, with A being the most efficient and G being the least. This is a standard procedure that looks at the efficiency and CO2 emissions per house based on assumptions about the occupancy and related behaviour. And the difference between bands is significant. C-band homes are about £270 cheaper to run than D-band, and D-bands are about £650 cheaper to run than E-bands annually. So it's important that in the UK, currently only 10% of houses are graded as Band C or higher. So clearly there's currently a big problem when it comes to insulation in British homes, which is causing not only an increase in greenhouse gas emissions, but also an increase in cost when it comes to maintaining households. There's even been evidence that it costs the NHS money. According to a report from the Regeneration and Retrofit Group, poor housing costs the NHS £4.1 billion per year, due largely to more hospital visits caused by poor health due to excess cold. With charity Age UK also finding that for every 1 degree drop in outdoor temperature below 5 degrees, GP appointments increase by 19%. So it's been established that Britain's inefficient homes are an issue. But what is the government doing to rectify this problem? Well, ever since 2013, the government has had the Energy Company Obligation. In effect, this is an umbrella term for a range of measures designed to make houses more efficient, specifically for lower income earners. Through the scheme, large energy providers are obligated to help lower earners improve their efficiency. In effect, the big six energy suppliers are obligated to provide funds in the form of a grant to homeowners on low incomes to help them install insulation. So far, 59,877 homes have been provided with cavity insulation through the scheme. 45,565 homes have been provided with underfloor insulation, 33,645 have been provided with loft insulation, and 15,187 have been provided with solid wall insulation. While this may seem impressive, we need to actually compare the scheme with the government's own targets to see whether it's actually been successful. As we mentioned earlier, the government aims to improve all homes to Grade C standard by 2030. And to do this, the government needs about 1 million insulation installations a year. However, in 2018, only 110,000 installations took place through the Eco Scheme, which clearly isn't even close to what's needed. And to make matters worse, the aforementioned House of Commons report suggests that there are few insulation installations happening outside of the scheme, except maybe for a bit of double glazing. The point is, as good as the eco scheme may seem, it's not doing enough to meet the government's own targets. And this is something Insulate Britain picked up on, with them making headlines lately for their direct action on the M25. Beyond just stunts and protests, Insulate Britain has two main aims. Firstly, they demand that the government immediately promises to fully fund and take responsibility for the insulation of all social housing in Britain by 2025. This is obviously bigger than just compelling the Big Six to provide funds for low earners. It would mean quickly insulating millions of homes. The second demand is that the government immediately promises to produce within 4 months a legally binding national plan to fully fund and take responsibility for the low energy and low carbon whole house refit with no externalised costs of all homes in Britain by 2030. This is obviously a huge step up from the government's current offering. Instead of providing funds for some homeowners to pay for some insulation, Insulate Britain wants the government to pay for a complete approach for insulation, known as a whole house refit, for all homes in Britain. The government as a whole hasn't really responded to Insulate Britain's demands. They've just stressed that they fundamentally disagree with the protests, with the Prime Minister remarking that the protests detract from their own aims. Some ministers have gone even further though. Priti Patel and Grant Shapps, for example, are seeking court injunctions to try and stop the protests, with Patel making clear that members of Insulate Britain who continue to protest in the way they do could risk imprisonment. But what do you think? Do you support the cause? And do you support their actions? Have your say in our Twitter poll, which is linked down below. And while you're there, drop us a follow to get more live updates from us and explainers which never make it to YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.